3 in the morning in the Rift Valley. While you sleep somewhere in the world, a 40-kilogram man climbs a 25-meter tree. No ropes, no equipment.
At the top, 40 baboons sleep in a group.
Each with canines capable of tearing a leopard's flesh.
One wrong move means death. Welcome to Africa's most dangerous hunt.
If you are passionate about wild animals and real documentaries, do not leave this video. Watch until the end, subscribe now to the channel and comment where you are watching from. Lake Eyasi rests in the depths of the Great Rift Valley, a geological scar that cuts the African continent from north to south for over 6,000 kilometers. This lake of brackish waters has existed for 65 million years, formed shortly after the extinction of the dinosaurs by the opening of a rift in the valley floor. Its shores extend for approximately 1,050 square kilometers during the rainy season, shrinking to little more than isolated puddles in the dry months. On its arid banks, among millenary baobabs and savannas dotted with thorny acacias, lives a people that defies all logic of human evolution. The Hadzabe are not just any tribe. They are the last genuine hunter-gatherers of East Africa, a community of approximately 1,300 people that has inhabited this region for over 50,000 years. 50 millennia. To put it in perspective, this means that the ancestors of the Hadzabe were already living there when the first modern humans began to migrate out of the African continent. While entire civilizations were born, flourished, and disappeared throughout history, the Hadzabe remained. The Egyptians built pyramids and disappeared. The Romans dominated the known world and fell. Empires came and went. The Hadzabe kept hunting. A few kilometers from Hadzabe territory lies the Olduvai Gorge, one of the most important paleoanthropological sites in the world, where fossils of Homo habilis dated to almost 2 million years were discovered. Scientists call this region the cradle of humanity, and the Hadzabe are living proof that something of our original essence still survives there. Genetic studies conducted by American and European universities confirmed that they represent one of the 3 distinct genetic lineages from which all humanity descends. Their language resembles no other on the planet. Hadzain is an isolated language, filled with clicks and pops produced by the tongue against the palate, sounds that most modern human beings simply cannot reproduce. Linguists have identified at least 4 different types of clicks in Hadzain, each carrying distinct meanings depending on the context. Researchers from Stanford University conducted extensive genetic studies and concluded that the Hadzabe represent one of the oldest human lineages still in existence. They did not migrate from anywhere. They have always been there. But none of this matters when the sun sets over Lake Eyasi and the hunters begin to prepare. The baboon hunt begins long before any arrow is fired. In the hours preceding the departure, the men gather around a fire at the entrance of a cave that serves as a temporary shelter for the group. The typical Hadzabe camp houses between 20 and 30 people and has no permanent structures. The huts are built with interwoven branches and grass coverings, assembled in a few hours, and abandoned without remorse when the group decides to move. When the resources of an area are exhausted, or when someone falls ill, the whole group simply leaves for another location. They carry almost nothing with them. A bow, a handful of arrows, a knife, maybe a small dick leather pouch to store tobacco and spare arrowheads. The philosophy is simple. Why accumulate what the land offers for free every day? Hadzabe bows are works of primitive engineering, refined by millennia of trial and error. The string is made of giraffe tendons braided and dried in the sun until they reach a resistance capable of withstanding decades of use. Each string takes days to be prepared correctly. and a well-cared-for bow can last the entire life of its owner. The wood of the bow comes from specific trees of the region, selected for their flexibility and durability. After generations of experimentation, the hunters spend hours carving and polishing the wood until it achieves the perfect curvature. Each bow is unique. Each hunter knows his bow as an extension of his own body, but it is the arrows that make the difference between life and death. The Hadzabe manufacture 3 distinct types of arrows, each designed for a specific purpose. The lightest ones, with thin and aerodynamic tips made of fire-hardened wood, serve to bring down birds like the guinea fowl, which inhabits the savanna bushes. These arrows weigh only a few grams and can be fired in rapid succession. The intermediate ones, more robust, are used for medium-sized animals at close range, like the dik-dik, a small antelope that barely exceeds 50 centimeters in height. The tips are made of metal, usually repurposed nails or blades, traded with neighboring tribes like the Datoga, who are skilled blacksmiths. And then there are the poisoned arrows. The Hadzabe poison is extracted from the desert rose, a succulent plant with pink flowers that grows in the most arid regions of the territory. The scientific name is Adenium obesum, and despite its delicate appearance, it contains one of the most potent cardiotoxic compounds found in African nature. The active substance belongs to the family of cardiac glycosides, chemical compounds that interfere directly with the functioning of the heart muscle. The hunters cut sections of the spongy trunk, extract the milky sap, and boil it in clay pots for approximately an hour until only a viscous dark brown substance remains, with the consistency of molasses. The process requires constant attention. If the mixture boils too much, the poison loses potency. If it boils too little, it does not reach the necessary concentration. This paste is then carefully applied to the tip of the arrows, just below the metal head. The hunters manipulate the poison with bare hands, but take extreme care not to touch open wounds or their eyes. After handling, they wash their hands with sand, grass, or tree bark. When the arrow penetrates the skin of an animal, the poison enters the bloodstream and begins to coagulate the blood. The heart accelerates. The muscles contract involuntarily. In a few minutes, depending on the size of the prey, the animal collapses. The Hadzabe know exactly where to aim to maximize the absorption of the poison. Neck, abdomen, any region with a high concentration of blood vessels. A well-positioned arrow can bring down an adult baboon of 40 kilos in less than 5 minutes. The poison does not contaminate the meat. The Hadzabe consume their prey without any special treatment, roasting them directly over the fire. The preparation for the hunt involves rituals that the Hadzabe have practiced for countless generations. The men sit in a circle, smoking dried leaves of a local bush in pipes made of animal bones. The hunters call this herb something that could be translated as elephant stepper, a reference to its energizing and stimulating effects. The smoke sharpens the senses and prepares the body for the hours of intense physical effort that will come. Some hunters wear adornments made of baboon skin, strips of fur tied on the head like primitive laurel wreaths. Each adornment represents a successful hunt, a slain prey, a fed mouth. On the perimeter of the camp, a baobab tree boasts dozens of animal skulls hanging from its twisted branches. This is the tree of prey, a natural altar where the Hadzabe deposit the remains of their most significant hunts. The belief is that the spirit of the dead animal transfers its strength to the bow of the hunter who killed it. Baboon skulls occupy prominent positions, hanging from high branches where everyone can see them. Hunting a baboon is not just a matter of food. It is a proof of courage, skill, and absolute mastery over one of the most dangerous animals of the African savanna. Because the baboon is not just any prey. The baboons that inhabit the Lake Ayasi region belong mainly to the species Papio anubis, known as the olive baboon due to the grayish coloration of its fur. An adult male can weigh up to 40 kilos, approximately the same weight as a large German shepherd. Their canine fangs measure up to 5 centimeters in length, longer than those of many leopards. These teeth are capable of piercing bones, tearing muscles, and causing fatal wounds in a matter of seconds. Scientists have already documented cases of male baboons killing leopards in direct confrontations. Baboons live in bands that can vary from 20 to over 100 individuals, organized in complex hierarchies dominated by extremely territorial alpha males. The females form the stable core of the group, while the males frequently migrate between different bands throughout their lives. They are opportunistic omnivores, feeding on fruits, roots, insects, and occasionally hunting small mammals and birds. Their intelligence is remarkable. Scientific studies have demonstrated that baboons are capable of recognizing individual faces, remembering past events, and even planning future actions. They learn from experience and transmit knowledge to the following generations. This means that the baboons know that the Hadzabe are predators. During the day, the baboon bands roam the savannah in search of food, always alert, always vigilant. Sentinels positioned at the edges of the group scan the horizon in search of any suspicious movement. Each type of predator provokes a specific alarm cry, a cry for eagles, another for snakes, yet another for felines. At the slightest sign of danger, the appropriate cry echoes through the band, and all members regroup instantly, ready to face the threat or flee at speeds that exceed 40 kilometers per hour. But at night, the baboons are vulnerable. When the sun sets over the African savanna, the nocturnal predators awaken. Leopards, lions, hyenas, all represent deadly threats to the baboons, especially during the hours of darkness when the superior vision of the felines becomes a decisive advantage. Field studies have demonstrated that leopards are responsible for the majority of adult baboon deaths in the wild, and most of these attacks occur during the night or in the early hours of the morning. The evolutionary solution of the baboons was to seek refuge in elevated places, inaccessible to most terrestrial predators, cliff faces, rocky slopes, and, principally, trees. Baobab trees are the favorites. The African, Baobab Adansonia digitata, is one of the most extraordinary trees on the planet. Its trunk can reach diameters of 10 to 14 meters, thick enough to shelter dozens of people inside its hollow interior. Some historical specimens were used as prisons, warehouses, houses, and even bus stops. The height varies between 5 and 25 meters, with some exceptional specimens exceeding 30 meters. The bark is smooth and grayish, offering few natural protrusions for climbing. The branches spread at the top like inverted roots, giving the tree its characteristic appearance of an upside-down plant. African legends tell that the gods planted the baobab upside down as punishment for its vanity. The baobab is also extraordinarily long-lived. Carbon dating has revealed specimens over 1,500 years old, and some researchers believe that the oldest ones may be over 2,000 years old. These trees were there when the first Europeans arrived in Africa. They were there during the height of the medieval African kingdoms. They were there when the ancestors of the Hadzabe were already hunting in their shadows. For the baboons, the top of a baobab represents safety. The heights are inaccessible to leopards, which, despite being excellent climbers, prefer trees with rougher bark and lower branches. The wide canopy offers space for the entire band to settle, sometimes more than 40 individuals sleeping together on the upper branches. The elevated position allows for the detection of any terrestrial approach long before it becomes a real threat. For the Hadzabe, the top of a baobab represents the supreme challenge. The climbing technique of the Hadzabe was developed over thousands of years and remains practically unchanged since time immemorial. The method is brutally simple and extraordinarily dangerous. The hunter carries with him a series of pointed wooden stakes, each approximately 30 centimeters long and 2 to 3 centimeters in diameter. Using a stone or the base of his axe, he hammers the first stake into the trunk of the baobab at the height of his chest. Then he climbs onto it, balancing on a single foot while hammering the next stake a little higher up, and so on, creating an improvised ladder that snakes up the gigantic trunk, 25 meters high. That is equivalent to an 8-story building. The hunter climbs without safety ropes, without protective equipment, without an emergency net. Each stake must be positioned with millimetric precision, angled, slightly upward to support the body's weight. If one of them gives way under the weight, if the wood is rotten, if the angle is wrong, the fall is inevitable. And from 20 meters high, onto a ground of compacted earth and exposed roots, a fall means certain death. The silence is absolute. The baboons sleep in compact groups, bodies against one another to conserve heat and offer mutual protection. But their sleep is light, constantly interrupted by nocturnal noises, movements of predators, even the rustling of leaves in the wind. A single unusual sound can wake the entire band, and when baboons wake up startled, their first instinct is to attack. Adult males advance toward the perceived threat, exposing 5-centimeter canines and emitting growls that can be heard hundreds of meters away. The Hadzabe hunter climbs in complete darkness. The moon may offer some illumination, but frequently the hunts happen on moonless nights, when total darkness makes it difficult for the baboons to detect movements nearby. Each stake is hammered with precise and muffled blows, the sound absorbed by the spongy wood of the baobab. The hunter controls his breathing, his heartbeat, every muscle fiber of his lean and fibrous body. A single heavier breath could be his last. The Hadzabe are physically adapted for this type of effort. Professor Herman Ponzer from Duke University conducted extensive studies on the tribe's metabolism and discovered something fascinating. Despite walking on average 15 kilometers per day and performing intense physical activities during most of their waking hours, the Hadzabe burn approximately the same amount of daily calories as sedentary people in industrialized countries. Their bodies evolved for maximum efficiency. Every movement is calculated. No energy is wasted. This discovery, christened the exercise paradox, revolutionized the scientific understanding of human metabolism. This explains why a 40-kilo man manages to climb 25 meters high, carrying a bow, arrows, and wooden stakes, and still have enough energy for what comes next. When the hunter reaches the canopy of the baobab, the most dangerous phase of the hunt begins. The baboons are a few meters away, sometimes less than an arm's reach away. The hunter can feel the heat of the sleeping bodies, hear the heavy breathing of the animals, detect the characteristic odor of the band. Any sudden movement, any unexpected noise, and 40 baboons will wake up simultaneously, ready to defend their territory. With claws and fangs, the hunter remains motionless for long minutes, sometimes for over an hour, waiting for the perfect moment. The hunter selects his target with extreme care. Ideally, an animal on the edges of the group, whose fall will not disturb the others. He fits the poisoned arrow into the bow, stretches the giraffe tendon string to maximum tension, and fires. The sound of the arrow cutting the air is almost imperceptible. The impact, however, causes an immediate reaction. The struck baboon emits a scream of pain and surprise that echoes through the African night. The band wakes, up in panic. Screams, growls, the noise of bodies moving frantically through the branches. The hunter remains motionless, merged with the shadows, while chaos unfolds around him. Baboons may not see well in the dark, but their other senses are sharp. They know there is a predator nearby, they just cannot determine exactly where. The poison begins to take effect. The struck baboon tries to flee, but its movements become increasingly uncoordinated. The heart accelerates beyond endurance. The muscles begin to fail. In 2 or 3 minutes, the animal loses the ability to hold onto the branches and plummets from the tree. The body hits the ground with a dull thud 20 meters below. Sometimes a single shot is not enough. The hunter may need to fire 2 or 3 arrows before the dose of poison is lethal. Each shot increases the risk of detection, of attack, of falling. Other hunters may be positioned at the base of the tree, ready to fire additional arrows should the animal attempt to escape down the trunk. There are reports of hunters who climb the tree to assist the main shooter, passing additional arrows and helping to maintain position on unstable branches. The coordination between the hunters is silent and perfect. The Hadzabe do not use words during the hunt. Communication happens through subtle gestures, head movements, body positioning. Decades of joint hunts create a synchrony that dispenses with explanations. Each man knows exactly what the other will do before he even does it. It is a choreography of survival refined by 50,000 years of practice. When the baboon finally falls, the hunt is not over. The hunters descend from the tree and approach the body with caution. Even mortally wounded, a baboon can deliver a last attack. The canines remain lethal until the last breath. One of the hunters holds the animal, while another cuts its throat with a metal knife, ensuring that death is complete. The head is separated from the body with precise axe blows. What happens next reveals much about the soul of the Hadzabe. The prey is processed right there at the site of the hunt. The skin is removed and stretched to dry in the sun, later transformed into clothes, bags, or ceremonial adornments. The skull is separated to be hung on the tree of prey at the camp. The meat is divided into equal portions without distinction of age, gender, or status. Among the Hadzabe, there are no chiefs. There are no hierarchies. Each person receives exactly the same amount of food as the others. Disputes are rare, but when they occur, the solution is simple. One of the parties simply moves to another camp. There are no prisons, courts, or formal punishments in Hadzabe society. The only law is reciprocity. He who shares, receives. He who refuses to share is left alone. Baboon meat is often consumed at the site itself, roasted directly over embers without any additional preparation. Visitors who have had the opportunity to share meals with the Hadzabe receive the first pieces as a gesture of honor and hospitality. The flavor is strong, similar to other game meats, and every part of the animal is utilized. Nothing is wasted. The bones will later serve to make tools, pipes, needles. The fat will be used to waterproof bows and strings. Even the intestines have utility in the preparation of traps and bindings. This pattern of total utilization reflects a deep understanding of natural cycles. The Hadzabe never hunt more than they need. They never collect more fruits than they can eat. They never exhaust the resources of an area before moving to another. Their presence in the Lake Ayasi ecosystem is so light that after 50,000 years of continuous occupation, they have left practically no archaeological traces other than a few arrowheads and stones blackened by fire. Compare that with the impact that modern civilization has caused in the same period. But the life of the Hadzabe is not a romantic idyll of harmony with nature. The human cost of this existence is real and constant. The average life expectancy in the tribe revolves around 40 years, drastically reduced by high infant mortality and the absence of modern medicine. Injuries that would be treated with antibiotics in any hospital in the world can become fatal in the African savanna. Infections, poorly healed fractures, parasitic diseases. The Hadzabe know hundreds of medicinal plants and use them with impressive skill, but there are limits to what natural medicine can achieve. The hunts take their physical toll. Scars from snake bites adorn the arms and legs of many hunters. Marks from leopard claws tell stories of encounters that could have ended differently. Joints worn down by decades of tree climbing limit the movements of the elders. The hunters carry on their bodies the map of a lifetime of confrontations with nature. Each scar tells a story of survival, of moments when death passed close enough to leave its mark. And then there is the threat that no hunting skill can combat. In the last 50 years, the Hadzabe have lost 90% of their ancestral territory. Farmers of the Sukuma tribe, coming from the west, deforested vast areas for corn and sorghum plantations. Datoga herders, pushed south by the expansion of the Maasai, brought their herds of cattle and goats, which consume the native vegetation and contaminate water sources. The Tanzanian government has repeatedly tried to settle the Hadzabe in permanent villages, forcing them to abandon their nomadic way of life in favor of agriculture. All attempts failed. The Hadzabe simply do not understand the logic of planting seeds today to harvest months from now. Their mind is calibrated for the immediate present, for the need of the moment. When they feel hunger, they walk to a wild berry bush. When they need protein, they hunt a dik-dik or a baboon. When they desire honey, they follow the honey guide bird to a hive, hidden in some baobab. The land provides everything. It always has. Why change now? But the land is shrinking. Hunting grounds have become fragmented, surrounded by farms and pastures. Wild animals have migrated to national parks, where the Hadzabe are not permitted to hunt. The baobab trees that housed hives for generations have been cut down to make way for plantations. The wild berry bushes have disappeared under the hooves of thousands of heads of cattle. Today, only 300 to 400 Hadzabe still live exclusively from traditional hunting and gathering. The others were forced to adapt, combining ancestral practices with food bought in nearby villages. Some work as tour guides, taking foreign visitors for staged hunting experiences that have little to do with the reality of their daily life. Tourism money brought its own problems. Alcoholism has become a significant cause of death among the Hadzabe who live near urban areas. Dependence on external goods created needs that previously simply did not exist. Young people who grew up seeing smartphones and motorized vehicles question whether it is worth maintaining traditions that seem to belong to another time. And perhaps they do. The fire slowly dies out as the sun rises over Lake Ayasi. The hunters return to camp with the prey, and the meat will be divided equally among all, without exception. There are no chiefs among the Hadzabe. There is no accumulation of goods. There are no hierarchies. Only people who depend on each other to survive in one of the most hostile environments on the planet. There is something deeply disturbing about observing the Hadzabe, not because of the brutality of the hunt or the danger they face, but because they show us who we were before we decided we needed more food than we can eat, more things than we can use, more land than we can inhabit. The Hadzabe have lost 90% of their territory in the last 50 years. Farmers, herders, and governments took their lands. Fewer than 400 people remain living in the traditional way. In 1 or 2 generations, this wisdom of 50 millennia may disappear forever. Maybe the question is not how they managed to live like this. Maybe the question is why we can no longer do so.